For decades, the era of battleships seemed over. Massive steel giants that once ruled the oceans during World War II were quietly retired, replaced by stealth destroyers, aircraft carriers, and missile submarines. But suddenly, the conversation has returned. What if the United States Navy builds a new battleship again? Not a museum relic from the 1940s. But a 21st-century battleship armed with hypersonic missiles, lasers, and next-generation radar. And surprisingly, the idea has been linked to a proposal associated with Donald Trump. A concept that could bring back the most powerful surface warship America has built since the legendary Iowa-class battleship. But here's the real question. Is this a bold vision for the future of naval warfare? Or a dangerous return to the past? Let's break it down. When battleships ruled the world. To understand why this idea is so controversial, we need to go back in time. There was a moment when the battleship was the ultimate symbol of power. In the early and mid-20th century, whoever controlled the largest battleships controlled the oceans. These ships were floating fortresses. Some carried guns larger than small cars. Their armor was so thick it could survive massive explosions. Ships like the legendary USS Iowa BB-61 represented the peak of American naval engineering. But then something happened that changed naval warfare forever. Aircraft carriers. During World War II, naval battles began to take place far beyond the horizon. Planes launched from carriers could strike targets hundreds of miles away. Suddenly, the biggest guns on a battleship were no longer the most important weapon. Missiles eventually made the situation even more dramatic. By the 1990s, battleships were considered obsolete. The United States officially retired the last operational ones, and the era seemed over. Or at least, everyone thought it was. A surprising idea, battleships return. Fast forward to the modern era. Naval warfare is changing again. Hypersonic weapons, drone swarms, long-range missiles, and advanced radar systems are transforming the battlefield. At the same time, the United States faces a growing maritime challenge from China, whose navy has expanded faster than any in modern history. Within this strategic competition, a bold proposal began circulating. A new generation of American surface warships. And in some discussions, the word battleship appeared again. The proposal imagined something completely different from the ships of the past. Instead of giant cannons, this new battleship would carry dozens or even hundreds of missile launch cells. It could fire cruise missiles, long-range anti-ship weapons, and even hypersonic strike systems. Some concepts also include directed energy weapons, like powerful ship-mounted lasers designed to shoot down drones and incoming missiles. In other words, a missile battleship. A heavily armed command ship capable of dominating entire sections of the ocean. What a modern battleship could look like. Imagine a warship unlike anything currently sailing the seas. This hypothetical vessel could displace 40,000 tons or more. That's larger than most modern destroyers and cruisers. Its deck would not be dominated by massive gun turrets like the past. Instead, the ship would be filled with advanced vertical launch systems capable of firing a wide range of weapons. Hypersonic strike missiles could allow it to hit targets thousands of kilometers away. Powerful radar systems, similar to those used on the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, could detect threats across vast distances. Meanwhile, future laser weapons might defend the ship against incoming drones and missiles. In theory, a modern battleship could become something like a mobile fortress at sea. Not just a weapon platform, but also a command hub coordinating fleets of drones, aircraft, and other ships. A centerpiece of naval power projection. But that vision also raises some serious concerns. Why many experts are skeptical. Not everyone believes bringing back battleships is a good idea. In fact, many naval analysts strongly disagree with the concept. The first issue is cost. Building a massive new warship with advanced weapons could cost tens of billions of dollars. For comparison, modern destroyers already cost billions each. A new battleship could be far more expensive. Another concern is vulnerability. Modern warfare is dominated by long-range missiles and satellites. Even a heavily armored ship might struggle to survive against large numbers of precision-guided weapons. Some analysts argue that the future of naval warfare lies not in bigger ships, but in smaller, distributed fleets. Unmanned surface vessels. Autonomous submarines. Drone carriers. In this view, investing heavily in one giant warship could actually increase risk. A single successful enemy strike could eliminate an extremely valuable asset.
Air defense. What the cruiser does is it's like a destroyer plus, if you will.
The real strategic question. So the debate continues. Should navies build bigger and more powerful ships to dominate the seas? Or should they move toward smaller, smarter, and more distributed forces? The truth is, no one knows exactly what naval warfare will look like in the next major conflict. What we do know is that the oceans are becoming more contested. Rising powers, new technologies, and geopolitical tensions are reshaping maritime strategy. Ideas that once sounded impossible, like the return of battleships, are being discussed again. Not necessarily because the past is returning, but because the future of warfare may require entirely new kinds of ships. The critics' argument. Many naval experts remain highly skeptical. One of the most significant concerns is cost. Modern warships are already extremely expensive. A single advanced destroyer can cost billions of dollars. A next-generation battleship packed with experimental technology could easily exceed tens of billions in development and construction costs. Another concern is vulnerability. Modern anti-ship weapons are incredibly lethal. Precision-guided missiles, satellite targeting systems, and submarine-launched torpedoes make the ocean far more dangerous for large surface ships than it was decades ago. Critics argue that concentrating so much firepower into one vessel could be strategically risky. If an enemy successfully destroyed that ship, the loss would be enormous, not only financially but also operationally. For this reason, many military planners prefer a different strategy. The distributed fleet strategy. A growing school of thought in naval strategy focuses on distributed maritime operations. Instead of relying on a few massive ships, fleets would consist of many smaller platforms working together. This approach includes unmanned surface vessels, autonomous underwater drones, missile-armed patrol ships, and distributed sensor networks. The idea is to spread firepower across many units so that losing one ship does not cripple an entire fleet. This strategy also makes it more difficult for an enemy to identify and destroy high-value targets. Supporters of distributed fleets argue that this approach is better suited for the missile-heavy battlefields of the 21st century. Why the idea still persists. Despite these criticisms, the idea of a modern battleship continues to attract interest. Part of the reason is simple: power concentration still matters. A heavily armed command ship could deliver overwhelming missile salvos, coordinate complex fleet operations, and serve as a visible symbol of naval strength. Another factor is technological uncertainty. New defensive technologies, such as advanced electronic warfare, artificial intelligence, and directed energy weapons, might eventually make large ships more survivable than critics expect. If lasers or electromagnetic weapons become powerful enough, they could dramatically change how ships defend themselves against missile attacks. In that scenario, larger vessels with greater power generation capacity might actually gain advantages. The strategic question of the future. Ultimately, the debate over battleships is really a debate about the future of naval warfare. Will the oceans be dominated by massive ships capable of launching enormous missile strikes? Or will fleets evolve toward networks of smaller, autonomous platforms working together? The answer is still uncertain. What is clear is that the strategic importance of the oceans is increasing once again. Trade routes, energy supplies, and geopolitical influence all depend on maritime control. As global competition intensifies, navies around the world are experimenting with new ideas, some radical, some controversial. The concept of a modern battleship is just one of those ideas. Final thoughts. So could the United States actually build another battleship? At the moment, there are no confirmed programs to construct one. For now, the idea remains theoretical. But military history has a way of surprising us. Technologies once considered obsolete sometimes return in unexpected forms when the strategic environment changes. The warships of the future may not resemble the battleships of the past. Yet the underlying question remains the same as it was a century ago. Who will control the seas? Will it be swarms of autonomous drones spreading across the oceans? Or a new generation of massive warships carrying unprecedented firepower? Whatever the answer turns out to be, it will shape the balance of naval power for decades to come.